Mesdames et messieurs,
The greatest festival of our contemporary society, the Olympic Games, is about to begin.
This is going to be close.
Oh! They're all completely gassed! They've given it everything on the global bucket! Oh, yeah! Go! Oh!
Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. But that is an Olympic championship.
Ready.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Keep the Flame Alive, the podcast for fans of the Olympics and Paralympics. If you love the games, we are the show for you. I am your host, Jill Jarris, joined as always by my lovely co-host, Allison Brown. Allison, hello, how are you?
I am very well. How are you doing?
I'm back at home. That's all I can say. It's been a long couple of years dealing with parental health care. So
It's
last
what
year,
happens.
last year my mother was supposed to have eye surgery. She ended up in the hospital for many days, and I was in Indiana for about 7 weeks taking care of some other health issues that popped up. This year she got the eye surgery she wanted.
She was not giving up on that eye surgery.
No, she was not, so good for her, and that went really well. And then she ran into the dishwasher and cut her leg open, and that has been a big issue, so that caused me to stay for another couple of extra weeks.
It isn't funny, but it is funny because it's one of those quirky accidents where we hear about this from athletes all the time. I remember there was I want to say a hockey player who fell through a glass top table and like taking pictures of his kid. Like there's these really bizarre accidents that happen that are just part of life.
Yes.
And we hear about it all the time. It's like, oh no, it's your but that's things happen, and it's not fun to have to deal with when things happen.
No, but she is doing well, on the mend enough to take care of her own wound care.
Excellent.
And, that is exciting. So very happy about that. Before I forget, massive thank you to and shout out to listener Erica, who this is in the mail for you coming soon.
Oh,
she
no.
sent us what she made for her crafting Olympics during Milano Cortina 2026. She and her friends do a craft fair.
Sorry, she had sent us something from Paris that I still use, I will say.
Yes.
The flip-flop keychain, I still use that on one of my sets of keys, so I'm excited to see this.
So this is a little crocheted, it's also a keychain, it's a little crocheted curling stone with a little smiley face, and I gotta tell you, it rivals those Jellycat curling stuffed plushies that we saw in the store in Milano Cortina. Erica, thank you so much. This will not get used as a keychain. It gets to sit and keep me company at my desk.
Smile at you.
And smile at me. It is adorable. So we appreciate you and all you do for the show and making us laugh. Today, we welcome Jenny Sichel back to the program. As you may remember, Jenny, from our conversation with her and Jason Belnicki about Athletes for Hope, which is an organization that connects athletes with mentoring programs and public speaking opportunities to have a positive impact on youth and communities. We talked to them last year. last fall, we aired those shows, and talking with Jenny had the potential to send us on many tangents. So we set up another interview with her, which we had on August 20th, 2025, and it's a fantastic two-parter that is incredibly fascinating. We saved part 1 for Mental Health Awareness Month. Jenny, who is a Paralympic silver medalist, she has competed as a coxswain in rowing for both able-bodied and para boats. She also has obsessive compulsive disorder, and we talked with her about being misdiagnosed for years, the work that went into taking control of her condition, and how it affected her as an elite athlete. Take a listen. Okay, let's talk about OCD mental health.
Yeah.
How did your OCD manifest itself to you? Like, when were you aware that this was part of your life?
I would say it started when I was in 5th grade, except I was misdiagnosed for 11 years.
Did you have a lot of diagnosis or just a wrong one?
I had a wrong one.
Okay, so what was the wrong one?
I was diagnosed as generalized anxiety disorder. And so I actually did take meds initially, like through, I want to say like sophomore year of high school. And I would go see a psychiatrist every week. And so So like it was under control. It just wasn't necessarily exactly what it needed to be.
Right, because a lot of the meds for OCD and GAD are the same, and a lot of the
Yes.
treatment is the same,
Yes. Yeah.
but with, like,
hmm
the wrong level of spice.
Yes. So I was just about to say that because when I was finally, so in college, my freshman year, I was considered the weird one on the hall. Like to the point where senior year came and I saw an open seat at people that I had spoken with, like had lived on the hall with freshman year. They were all still friends. And I was like, oh, I haven't talked to them in ages. Like, and at this point, fully like under control, knew what was going on, and walk up to the table and I go, oh, hey guys, like I haven't seen you in ages. Do you mind if I sit and hang out for dinner? And they were like, there's no open seats. So I was definitely the weird one on the hall at my freshman year, for better or worse. But sophomore year came and I told my parents, I was like, something's wrong. I need to speak to someone. And ended up speaking with a psychiatrist who then diagnosed me with OCD. And once I started getting treated for OCD, which is obsessive compulsive disorder, I know we've been using the acronym, I just want to be sure it's out there. But when I finally got diagnosed with that, so I stayed on the same med. I doubled the dosage of it, which is the treatment for OCD. Is double the dosage of the med, same type of like cognitive behavioral therapy, and then I went on one other small dose of another med. And between all of that, like totally in control now. Do I still have obsessive thoughts? Yes, 100% every day. I often will find myself, actually, I often obsess about the negative things that have happened to me in rowing and what I could have done better or what I could have changed. And it will just like keep going, constantly obsessing, constantly increasing my anxiety. I have tactics now to be able to stop that when I realize it's happening, but it still affects me every day. And I think that now it's just the intrusive thoughts. I used to do the compulsions with it. It used to manifest itself as I would get these intrusive thoughts. They would cause anxiety, and I would do the compulsion to decrease the anxiety. So, like, for example, I would say, the intrusive thought would be, I just saw this person who I've labeled as bad. I'm going to die, would be the intrusive thought because I saw that person labeled as bad. If I touch anything that they touch, so let's say I touch the same book as them, I'm going to die. And then the compulsion would be, I need to wash my hand or just wet my hand. If I wet my hand, I'm not going to die. I'm going to be fine. I'm rid of all of that germ. So as soon as I would wet my hand, all the anxiety would disappear and I would move on. But what I learned along the way is that anxiety is like a bell curve. It goes up, it hits a peak, and it comes down. And with OCD, you have these intrusive thoughts causing this anxiety. The compulsion, you actually stop the anxiety before it hits the peak of the bell curve. And so the peak keeps increasing and increasing and increasing after the compulsion, after you do multiple compulsions. And so you never actually see the peak. So it becomes a bigger and bigger and bigger deal when the anxiety comes back. And so you keep doing the compulsion, just like a vicious cycle. So what you have to do to break that is ride out the anxiety and realize that there's another side to the anxiety bell curve. And so through that, and then the meds, which kind of help make you feel stronger in a way, it's kind of like when you're weightlifting and you put on a weightlifting belt. You feel more solid to be able to combat those intrusive thoughts and that compulsion. So that's kind of like a little bit about how it manifested myself. I have contamination-based OCD, which it mostly has to do with germs. And not germs like you would necessarily, like, yes, like cold virus germs, but then also, I see a black dot on something that has a germ on it. Or, Allison's touched this. If I touch that, I'm going to get Allison's cooties, kind of thing. So that's kind of the way. And I have a little bit of there are different types of OCD. I have a little bit of the other ones, like religious-based OCD I used to have, where I had to go to church every single Sunday or I was going to go to hell. Where it was like, but it was like, it wasn't just that normal. It was like during the week, I'd be like thinking about it and like obsessing over it and causing me anxiety. And the only way to survive it was to go to church. So it's definitely been a journey. And it's definitely affected me in sports too. But I don't know. I like who I am, so I wouldn't have it any other way. Like, would I not want the OCD? Yeah, that would be great to not have to constantly like obsess over things. But then I also don't think I'd be who I am.
How did it affect you in sports?
It increased my levels of anxiety, specifically around national team and trying out for stuff. And I mean, there was one time when I actually was at a selection camp and was so wildly anxious that I was going on like a fast walk every single morning to get the anxiety out. And it was all about obsessive thoughts like, am I good enough? Am I going to do this? Like, oh gosh, but like intrusive thoughts, like I'm not, oh, I stepped on a crack yesterday. I'm not going to be able to perform today. So thoughts that don't make sense, but cause you anxiety anyways. And then it was to the point at the selection camp that I actually shut down during selection camp because the anxiety levels were so high that I actually like shut down, which basically reflected as me just being uber calm. But it was actually me just like, it's not worth it. Like, why am I doing this? Like, why I can't do this anymore. I'm just going to shut down. And I walked out of that selection camp, and nobody knew about my mental health disability at this time. And I walked out of that selection camp, and the coach goes, "Hey, I don't know what you did this selection camp, but you were great. You were so relaxed." And I was like, if only you had any clue. And so, like, in that sense, and that stigma, and just the unknown, it's definitely affected me. In 2012, I think it was, I actually disclosed to the coach that I had OCD at the time, and then didn't make the boat. Whether or not those were one and the same or affected, I don't know, but it felt like it. And so I never told anyone after that until after I retired. And having to keep that secret, like, is really, really hard and takes a toll on you mentally and physically. And so oftentimes you're just exhausted. And for no reason other than the fact that your brain's been going nonstop, constantly trying to battle the anxiety. And so physically it manifested itself too. So what I've been trying to do now is raise that awareness around mental health and sports and athletics and get the training for coaches to be able to create that culture and environment that people feel safe opening up about, or aren't concerned that if they don't hide their mental health, or if they speak about their mental health, they're going to get cut from the team. Because if anything, it's just like it's kind of like treating a physical ailment too, in the sense that when you treat a physical ailment and get better from that, you're a better athlete. When you treat your mental health and get better from that, you're a much better athlete. So in that sense, like, I would say negative turned into a positive, and how can we make this, reframe this? But then I think also, like, my OCD part of it is I'm uber competitive and I'm very meticulous with what I do. And so I think that actually helped me in a way get to the level that I was at and that I got to. So it's like a give and take there.
OCD is very misunderstood by the general public. What's the one aspect of that irritates you the most?
I love to hate when people say, I'm so OCD about this, which I'm sure you knew I was going to say, but like, when I love to hate that. And I love it when people say that, because I was like, if you only knew, bless. But then I also hate it because I'm like, you have no effing clue, like, what someone that has OCD goes through. It's not just like color coding the books on my bookshelf in my background. That's not OCD. That's because I like things being pretty. Like, it's like, I don't have to shift the position of that book. It's like some people with OCD do, but I don't have that type of OCD. I'm probably one of the messiest people I know. You can't see the rest of my background here, but it is hot mess express. And so it's like having that preconceived notion and then just kind of like, I don't know, making it seem so simple. Like, oh, I'm so OCD about this. And yeah, I say it lightly, but people actually say that a lot. And you're like, are you though? Or is it just like, actually like organization, or, you saw a piece of garbage on your desk and you wanted to throw it away? Or is it actually causing you anxiety to the point where throwing it away is the only way that you're going to get rid of that anxiety? And if you don't throw it away, something else bad will happen. So that's probably my biggest pet peeve with OCD specifically.
What about mental health in sports?
I think with mental health in sports, my biggest peeve is the lack of knowledge and that people have. Because I think once people become educated about the value of bringing mental health culture into a team, we will only see sports grow in competitiveness, in how, this could go for Team USA too. Like how many medals we get, how fast athletes are, how competitive against other athletes they are. Because when you're in a good space mentally, you're going to be in a great space competition wise. But if you're not, and it's not spoken about, and you have that sort of like, I don't know, negativity surrounding it, you're not going to necessarily perform to the top level that you could be or that you should be. So I think that's probably my biggest peeve, is just the lack of knowledge surrounding mental health in sports and the stigma associated with it.
With Tokyo, mental health came to the forefront, which is a good shift. But are we, as the pandemic fades and people forget how tough it was mentally, are we still, like, as a society, doing a good job of keeping mental health in an important space?
I think better than we were 10 years ago. But I also think that the power of the Olympics and Paralympics is that societal challenges are brought to the forefront. But it's only when the games are actually happening. After the games end, where does that all go? Like, how often were you hearing about Simone Biles and mental health during the Olympics? How often, when Michael Phelps was performing, did you hear about Michael Phelps? And these are only 2 athletes. Out of how many? Why aren't we hearing more about this? And it doesn't just end when the Olympics ends. It's not like all of a sudden, oh, my OCD's gone, the Olympics is over. No. It's like, this is an ongoing thing for so many athletes and people in general. So I think we can do a much better job about just reframing the way we're thinking about this, in the sense that it doesn't just end when the Olympics ends or Paralympics ends. It's not just gone. It's still here. So why do we only talk about it once every 2 years?
Or that a lot of these issues have a cure. So often in the media, somebody has a depressive episode and then they're cured. And OCD, and so many of these things are forever. They're managed. They're like diabetes.
Yes.
You manage it.
Yes. Yeah. I don't say I don't have OCD anymore. I say I'm under control. My OCD is under control. And there's a big difference there, because it still affects me every single day. It's just I now have tactics and the right meds to be able to manage my OCD to the point where it's not taking over my life anymore. But that doesn't mean that I don't still have a chemical imbalance in my brain. Like, I'm always going to have that. I was born with it. Like, it's kind of like my eczema. I'm always going to have eczema. My eczema hasn't been cured. It's just under control. And sometimes you have flare-ups. And sometimes I have OCD flare-ups. And I talk to my psychiatrist and we say, okay, maybe start taking this other med a little bit more often for the next 2 weeks to get this flare-up under control. And then start weaning off that med a little bit more back to the dosage that you're currently at. And often my flare-ups will come around stress. Stress is a major trigger for my OCD. So that's also why not competition so much, but selection camp was the hardest for me, because that was the highest stress. So, stress a trigger. Let me go do the most stressful thing in the world. One of the most stressful things in the world, as one does.
It has to be exhausting in a way, because if you're in the stress of selection camp and then you have a flare up, Do you ever sleep in those situations?
Oh, I sleep a lot.
Do you?
Sleep
Okay.
is not one of the things that I have trouble with.
Oh.
Actually, you can ask my parents. They'd probably say my mantra is, "I'm so tired." And when I first started, like, really feeling tired, and it's not like chronic fatigue. I'm not always tired. It's just after I have an anxiety period, I'm often more tired than I would be had I not had an anxiety period. Or after I've been obsessing about something, I use all of that brain power on obsessing about this and calming my anxiety back down, that it does get me a little more tired or fatigued than someone who might not have OCD. And so, like, my mantra is definitely, I'm so tired. But at the same time, like, it's also not, now that it's under control, it's not like taking over my life with fatigue or anything like that. And it's at normal levels for the most part. It's just like when you do have a flare up, it is more exhausting. So it's just managing it all. It's like figuring it out along the way.
Disassociation, your cure for insomnia.
It's so funny though, because like that's one thing that like I don't actually have trouble with is sleeping at night or anything like that. Now that I say that, I'm going to start obsessing about it. I'm going to be like, why aren't you getting to sleep, Jenny? Why aren't you getting to sleep? I've totally done that in the past, but it's not something that I generally have trouble with, or napping during the day. Like, I'm fine with that. I probably do it more so and need to do it more so than someone who might not have OCD. I don't know if that's medically legitimate or not, but I'm going to say for me, it works for me.
When you work with athletes today, how does mental health come into the conversation? Does it come into the conversation?
Yeah, I really try to, and not saying that it always, like, I'm perfect at anything or the best at anything, but I try to create a safe space for athletes to talk about anything. I think that having that open space for athletes to discuss or voice how they're feeling is so crucial. But then I also try to lead by example too. And if I am coxswain in a boat, or I do downhill ski racing in the winter, or even I perform improv now. When I'm nervous, I'll actually say, hey, I'm a little nervous. It's like, I'm feeling it right now. It's a good kind of nerves, but I think it's really like, I'm a little nervous. And then other people are like, oh, me too. Like, blah, blah, blah. And all of a sudden it opens up this space where now all of a sudden we're going to be able to perform even better because we're all on the same page. And we're all like, no, actually it's going to be okay. Instead of keeping it to yourself and worrying about it. And so I think by both leading by example and being open to other perspectives and thoughts and not jumping on them, being like, no, that's wrong. Or, oh, that's so unhealthy. We need to get you out of here ASAP. It's like just understanding, being a little more empathetic to athletes and to other people makes such a difference.
Excellent. Thank you, Jenny Sichel, for coming on and talking about mental health and sports with us. It was a fascinating switch to see mental health come into play during Tokyo. And now we're seeing the aftermath. And I'm very curious how much the support, especially financially and time-wise, will be there, continue to be there. And if it's, will it stick?
Yeah.
So hopefully it will. But thank you so much for coming on and chatting with us. It's always great to talk to you.
Thank you so much for having me. This was fantastic and so much fun to chat.
Thank you so much, Jenny. You can follow Jenny on LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook. We'll have links to those in the show notes. You can also learn more about obsessive compulsive disorder at the International OCD Foundation. That's IOCDF as in Frank.org, which is kind of convenient considering that we talk about the IOC. That's all you got to remember is 2 extra letters, people. So if you need to learn more, that's an incredible resource, iocdf.org. And we will have part 2 of our conversation with Jenny in a couple episodes where we will answer all the questions you have about being a coxswain, and many that you did not know you had. That it is an awesome interview. Jenny shared with us just how vital that role is in a boat And if you don't know about a ton about rowing, this will give you a completely different perspective on and appreciation for the sport. And you will learn what Jenny carries in her coxswain bag, which is a thing we didn't even know existed.
We didn't. It was one of those interviews, and we've had a few of these, but this one was particular where it was one question really led to 10 others.
Yeah.
And it was a lot of fun. And of course, Jenny's fantastic, so that always helps.
So be sure to tune in for that.
Andiamo a sciare.
Oh boy, we have some Milano Cortina news. The International Ski and Snowboard Federation had its spring technical committee meetings, and they had some thoughts about Milano Cortina 2026.
And not all of them were bad thoughts.
No, not all were bad. So in terms of legacy stuff, Alpine's going back to Bormio for men's World Cup and Cortina for women's World Cup, both before Christmas in the 2026-2027 season. So that is very good. Potentially coming down the line, this is awesome. Paracross country skiing wants to introduce a team sprint and skiathlon events for next year's World Cup season, which means maybe not for 2030, but maybe for 2034, we could see that sport expanded for the Paralympics, which would be really cool. The Park and Pipe Subcommittee, which covers slopestyle, big air, and half pipe, had a lot of conversations about Milano Cortina 2026. And they were really excited about the digital growth and interest in the sports of this group. But they said not being able to test the venues at Livigno before the games was a big problem.
You think?
Yeah. And again, I'm really sad we did not get there. And we did not have like the bandwidth to really pay attention to what was going on up there in terms of like behind the scenes stuff and understanding what is really going on. Because you have to trust that the media coverage is doing that. And if what you see on digital stuff, a lot of it's all curated. Milano Cortina is going to show you the best. The federations are going to show you the best. The NOCs are going to show you the best stuff. They're not going to talk about what's really going on. They're going to save it for the committee meeting later.
And reporters are limited to what they can film and what they can show at the actual venues. You know, we can't take video when we're in the venue. So all the people who would give us possibly, you know, this thing isn't working very well, they can talk about it, but that's hard to do, or that's hard for us to keep up with when we're then doing our own coverage.
Right. So the FIS did acknowledge that the course builders, course crews, and organizers on the ground did do their best during the games, but due to delays in getting the venues done, the crews really felt it during competition. And here's a quote. Unfortunately, as seen most clearly in the free ski and snowboard slopestyle competitions in Livigno, the challenges presented by that venue translated to challenges for the Olympians on hand, affecting performance on the world's biggest sporting stage. End quote. And that is from their technical meeting article that they posted on the Federation website. So all stakeholder groups at that technical meeting, which included athlete reps, were, quote, in full agreement that such a situation cannot and will not occur again at such critical junctures, end quote. And I think this is more than just it snowed a lot.
Right. There was real technical problems with the course itself that didn't get discovered until the Olympics are happening, and then you can't really do much about it because you can't change the course literally mid-run.
Right. Freestyle skiing, which is moguls and aerials, they had nothing but good things to say about Livigno and the Olympics and said the new dual moguls event was a big success. And Snowboard Cross also said Livigno did a good job, even though snow was an issue, but test events would have been helpful. Read between the lines on that. And listeners, if you liked the onboard goggle cams that they had during the snowboard cross races, that pilot program is being expanded. So you will probably see more of that in the future.
Can I just say I love the idea of a park and pipe subcommittee?
I know. I was just like, "Ooh, FIS, you're really telling us some stuff. Thank you."
No, but it's true. I'm glad that they were very public about this, that they're not sweeping this under the rug and saying, oh, it was the Olympics, everything was great. There were problems. This is what we're going to do about it. And we're not going to let this happen again to the athletes, which
yes,
as we talk about a million times a day, it's all about the athletes and their experience.
Frank Xu had a pretty scathing article, at least by Google Translate standards, so keep that in mind, about Milano Cortina's announced deficit. Frank Xu reports that Milano Cortina had 56 partnerships, but had the lowest sponsorship revenue for a Winter Olympics since Torino 2006. It also said
a connection there.
I know. It also said that Italy's Court of Auditors is investigating the cost overruns of the Santa Giulia Arena, which was budgeted at 177 million euros. It's rumored that costs could be as much as 320 million now. And it doesn't help that revenues were 80 million lower than anticipated because they lost 2,500 seats in the hockey venue because it didn't get done. So all of those games were lost revenue.
Right, because there was that whole section that was just temporary seating, which didn't have the second tier.
Yes. The other big problem was the lack of restocking Milo and Tina's, which were almost immediately sold out, which is also true. We were just amazed. Well, not amazed that they sold out because they were adorable mascots, but we were amazed that Milano Cortina did not have the foresight to think that these would sell out.
And that they weren't producing them and getting ready. And it didn't make any sense.
To not be able to buy the mascot for the Paralympics during the Paralympics was a big problem. And if you sold out, I mean, you had probably a good month to try to get stuff in.
Right, because they sold out of the mascots within the first few days of the Olympics, and all the signs were going up in the store. No mascot, no mascot, no mascot. You had some time to get things squared away before the Paralympics, before any of those stores closed. All those pop-up shops were still there, and so they didn't get it together for that.
Yeah, which is not great. Not very Olympic. If you want to see the best of the best, not very Olympic. We have some news from LA 2028, which announced its Cultural Olympiad, but that announcement was really light on details.
Yeah, I skimmed this and said, am I missing something?
Yeah. So they said they're building it from the community level up and will have a program that spans fashion, film, food, music, performance, and visual art. The one concrete thing we know is that there will be 16 official LA 2028 art posters, 8 for the Olympics, 8 for the Paralympics. They will be created by local artists, and they will go through a juried process. And public unveiling is set for July 2027, perhaps with 1 year to go. Don't know, but they said, that makes sense. There will be an official Cultural Olympiad mark to recognize and promote and connect cultural organizations. And that kind of makes it sound like they're going to get, I'm a cultural organization, I can get the LA 28 Cultural Olympiad seal of approval.
Kind of like the royal seal,
I guess. There wasn't much said what this was and what the benefits were, but you can apply if you're an organization. You can apply in early 2027. Concrete, there will be a Sport on the Silver Screen film series with free screenings of 28 sports films throughout the city at some point. Don't quite know. And then in January 2028, there will be a Cultural Olympiad calendar and mapping platform launching. And that's going to be a digital calendar of everything going on in terms of the Cultural Olympiad. The good news is that they have secured some underwriting. So many events will have discounted or even free tickets or entrance fees if it's like a museum or something. Programming is supposed to cover not just the LA area, but also LA 28 venue cities and LA 28 national activations. So not quite sure. I'm guessing there's going to be a Oklahoma City aspect to this. Not quite sure how venue cities goes in terms of including the football stadiums.
Because that's every city. That's like the entire country. But no, I'm glad about the underwriting, and maybe that's related to the seal, that you can get the seal and they'll be involved in the ticketing discounts and pieces like that. But yeah, you want to see a good active cultural Olympiad because as we discovered, especially in Paris, some really fantastic events were related to the Cultural Olympiad and not something that we had experienced, I don't think. Certainly not in Beijing because there was no there was no getting out of the bubble. But Paris did such a fantastic job of including that and making it part of the feeling of the city. So good on you, LA, to be at least thinking and working on this at this point.
Right.
Patinage de vitesse.
Franck Zhu again reporting, and hat tip for Rich Perlman at the Sports Examiner for pointing this out. French Alps 2030 wants to put speed skating in the Netherlands. They say there's no available site in the French Alps region for a speed skating track and arena. So they want to hold them in Heerenveen in the Netherlands at the Tialf, which is a 12,500 seat speed skating venue. So it's going to be packed with Dutch people, which lucky for them.
As you will.
Yes, they've hosted the World Championships 23 times. So good venue choice. It's nowhere. It's in the middle of it. You can't get to it. If you wanted to go from Nice to Heerenveen, it's a 16-hour drive.
Oh. And that's probably the only way to do it.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, it's an hour and a half away from Amsterdam.
Oh.
Driving, it's a little under 2 hours if you took a train from Amsterdam. But it really is kind of around this bay on the other side from Amsterdam. So it's kind of hard to get to if you wanted to travel there. Just, fly in. You'd have to fly to Amsterdam and drive to this. So there is no, this makes French Alps really along the lines of Milano Cortina 2026 in terms of spread out and making it difficult for NOCs and media and any other stakeholders that want to be in multiple places and don't have the resources to do that. It'll be great. It'll be a great venue. It'll be full. And it's
no doubt.
And it's not like the speed skating in Italy wasn't full of Dutch people because the audiences were mostly Dutch. So that I don't think is going to be the issue. It's just that it's not going to be, it's going to be another World Cup feel.
It's not going to feel like, at least in Milano Cortina, you had the hockey venue that was right there. And for fans, they would, I mean, I know some fans did 2-a-days where they did a hockey game and speed skating. And also just being in that spot was one of the only spots it felt very Olympic because you had multiple events happening at the same time. So you had multiple groups of fans coming in and out. So you knew all the people with their orange gear were going to this event and all the people with the American flags were going to hockey. So that is lost when you just stick it 16 hours away. But French Alps already has this problem.
Right. And it's just going to be a tough games all around. It's going to be like Milano Cortina, but I think even less focused. Maybe not. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but I'm not too hopeful. We'll find out more from them in June because there are more IOC meetings and they have to present and have their venues finalized by then.
We'll see. Speaking of the IOC.
Exactly. The International Olympic Committee Executive Board met last week. And like how TBOC had Agenda 2020 and Agenda 2020 plus 5, Kirsty Coventry's got her platform, and it's called Fit for the Future. And she's going to get the IOC into shape.
Yeah, she's not fooling around. It's kind of fun to watch her. It's been fun watching her at the podium.
Yeah.
Over the past few months, just seeing she's really not fooling around and coming into her own very quickly, which is exciting to watch.
Yes. So the Fit for the Future has 5 pillars with different working groups. The first one is athletes. It's the protection of the female category. We've talked about that because they came out with their decision so far. The second pillar is Olympic Games. So that talks about the Youth Olympic Games, the Olympic Games program, the Olympic Qualifier Series, and Olympic Games delivery. And Youth Olympic Games 2030 is on hold. They were supposed to vote on a city this year. They are putting that one on hold. The IOC has done a lot of surveying of international federations and national Olympic committees. I think Kirsty Coventry's also big on a survey.
She loves a survey. But you know what? It makes sense that she's big on a survey because that's how you get the voices of the smaller federations.
Yes.
They have equal voice when you're looking at a piece of paper.
Yes. They have gotten inconclusive feedback from that. So they're putting the Youth Olympic Games on pause to think why they're even doing it. And they want to figure out what is the best way for the IOC to engage with youth. And right now, the Youth Olympic Games is not answering enough of those questions. So they're not sure if it's a good path, if it's really engaging youth in the right way. I thought was very interesting. We are not just going to keep moving forward just because the ship is going in that direction. So Dakar 2026 and Northern Italy 2028 will still happen, but beyond that is up in the air. I kind of wonder how much of it is, hey, we're spending a lot of money on this. I don't know if they saw, is it a pathway? Because we have noticed this year, especially more, we've noticed that many athletes have been Youth Olympic Games participants in a way that I haven't noticed before, but it's not like they promote that very much.
No, they talk about it briefly, but they more talk about it when it's the Youth Olympic Games time, as into, these people then went on to the Olympic Games rather than at the Olympic Games talking about who competed at the Youth Olympic Games.
Right. And I bet it's just expensive, national Olympic committees and federations. I'm sure, Northern Italy's got to reuse venues. So that's nice. But is that the best way to reuse them? Who knows? But I'm sure that there is a lot of we got to put a lot of money into this. And when audiences may not pay attention, what good is it? In the same vein, the Esports Commission has been thanked.
Thanked and dismissed.
Yes. They have to figure out how and if esports fits into the future of Olympics. And you said it best the other week that esports isn't totally gone, but the IOC is looking at their core businesses and seeing how esports fits into that.
And that goes back to the Youth Olympic Games as well. It's always got to feed into your main product.
Yes. So any other further details will be down the road. They're kicking that can down the road. But I would not expect them to make a comeback at all. The Olympic
done.
Yeah. The Olympic qualifier series is back and revamped for 2028. So this happened ahead of Paris 2024 and was if you remember, it was 2 festival type events in Shanghai and Budapest. And those were Olympic qualifiers for some of the newer sports on the Olympic program. They've renamed it. It's going to be called the Q Series, and it's been expanded to 4 cities that will have a May to June 2028 run. So again, qualifying for the games right before the games. It will start in Tokyo on May 4 through 7, go to Shanghai, May 11 through 14. Then it's Montreal, June 1 through 4, and Orlando, June 8th through 11. So Orlando, Florida. 6 sports will be part of the Q Series. And they are 3x3 basketball, beach volleyball, BMX freestyle, climbing, flag football, skateboarding. And direct quota places for LA 2028 will be on offer. Not every sport will be at every city, but the final programs are yet to be determined. Though if they say Orlando's having flag football, I would not be surprised.
Right, because that's an American thing. But this makes so much sense because it's kind of like an appetizer to get you ready for the Olympics. The Q Series makes so much sense in terms of feeding so directly into your core product. And won't this be fun in Montreal? Because I wonder if they'll use some of the same 76 spots and they could say, home of this event in 76, and you bring in that legacy. The same thing with Tokyo. Some of those venues that we didn't get to see very much of.
I think it's going to be a lot of fun. And if you're around, go and let us know, or plan to go. And if you can't get tickets to the Olympic Games, next best thing, you could see a whole bunch of sports in one go.
And a whole bunch of Olympians.
Yeah. The Olympic Games delivery section, this is a quote: "The current model can and should be challenged." per Kirsty Coventry. So IOC Operations Director Pierre Ducree was on hand to talk about that. This is all from the press conference after their recent executive board meeting, so that this is why he's on hand. Kirsty Coventry has given a clear mission to control the size of the games, and she talked about how London had 26 sports and LA has 36, and did not sound thrilled about the explosion of sports. And they're going to review the program, and they are defining what is a discipline in a sport, and that definition is one or more events within a sport that require either a dedicated field of play or a significant modification to a field of play. So a good example is 3x3, which is a very different field of play from full court 5-on-5 basketball, or beach volleyball, which is, with sand, and indoor volleyball on a court. So for Paris 2024, there were 28 sports and 47 disciplines, excluding the sports proposed by the organizing committee, because breaking and skateboarding, surfing, and climbing were not on this list of sports and disciplines. 18 sports were single discipline, so that would be like badminton, judo, rugby sevens. 10 were multidiscipline. That's aquatics, athletics, gymnastics, basketball, shooting, canoe, volleyball, cycling, equestrian, and wrestling. For a winter games, there are 4 single discipline and 3 multi-discipline sports. Skiing is the biggest. It's got 11 disciplines. And so now they want to look at those multidiscipline sports because disciplines affect field of plays and add complexities, i.e. money. And they said it's also not clear how a sport is added to or removed from the program. So they're now figuring that out as well.
Excellent, because we have been very confused as to how a sport gets on there. And we have thought about this a lot. And we have researched it multiple times and come up with nothing.
And I can only imagine the room when Kirsty Coventry goes, so tell me, how does a sport get onto the Olympic program? And nobody has an answer. I can imagine the silence and the look on her face of not being pleased that nobody knows. Like, we are uncovering stuff here with this presidency. And not that that's a horrible thing. Stuff happens. And just the whole, moving from a demonstration sport to this, organizing committees can pick a few sports and maybe they'll get added on if we think they're really cool. But we don't really know anymore how stuff gets added. There was a question on complexity and economy of the games, and the response was that when they add sports and disciplines that need new venues, that's where it gets more complex and more expensive. That changes the experience. It adds costs for the stakeholders. So the IOC is asking itself how they can help make the games less complex, and they're identifying many areas across the games and the ecosystem to do this, which is fascinating to me. So Pierre Ducree, the Olympic Games operating director, said that when they're talking about adding or removing sports from the program, the athletes will need to be supported to facilitate that transition. And then Kevin Marabi, who's the IOC athletes department director, said that 70% of summer athletes only go to one Olympics. So they want to work on supporting that journey and making that experience unique.
Oh, that's interesting. 70%. That's an interesting statistic.
Yeah. And we talk a lot about, people go to so many more games now, but there's still so many athletes who don't.
Yeah, one and done.
Right. Well, I mean, when you think about how many athletes don't make it to the podium,
right,
they probably are one and done, or they can't make a second one work unless there's just something special about how they can support themselves. The tone of that, making that experience unique, kind of felt like it was hard to make that experience unique in Milano Cortina.
Right.
Because of the spread. I have a feeling that we're going to find disciplines removed first.
Slim down how many races you have, how many versions of the 50 meters and the 100 meters.
Well, no, that doesn't matter as much because that's the same pool.
Fair enough.
You're talking about, do you have a track stadium and a marathon course and a race walking course?
Right.
Do you have shooting has multiple types of an indoor venue and an outdoor venue. I didn't even really feel like modern pentathlon was on the line so much because they've managed to pare everything down to one stadium. And as a stadium you can pair with another sport. That may work. So I'm very curious how this will work out. I mean, obviously the LA program is set, but we're looking more at 2032 because they have not talked about finalize the sports that are on that program. But I also thought it was really interesting how you could tell that Kirsty Coventry is only 10 years out of being an athlete.
Right. I mean, she came in to clean house, which is really exciting. And she's not part of the old boys network in that way, and not afraid to rattle some cages, which is really exciting.
Yeah. So business as usual is not business as usual anymore. We think that's what we're getting from this first year for Kirsty Coventry. They will be voting on the 2030 French Alps program in June. There will definitely be no summer crossover sports included, just snow and ice. We talked about that last episode. No decisions on the 2032 program until the fourth quarter of 2026 or the first quarter of 2027. And we should not expect to see 36 sports. And Kirsty said that the host city contract does not require that many. So getting bigger is not the answer. And the IOC wants to take control of this and not pass that hot potato over to Brisbane. And they want to set up a good process. So that's really, really interesting. All in, like, let's manage the scale of these games. Because I think the scale of LA is probably overwhelming.
Yes. It always has to that pendulum swing, right? Because it swung so far now to making it bigger, 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 that it becomes unmanageable, and we have to rein it in to just make it an event that people can enjoy and not look at and say, I'm lost.
Yeah. And, for such a long time, it was like build, build, build. And we could get bigger and bigger because you're building the venues. But now that the impetus is don't build, use existing venues, the cry of getting bigger, bigger, bigger doesn't work because all of a sudden you can only have a few cities that have enough venues for all of this. Or you're talking about making your games 6 months long. At some point, we can't go back to those days.
Okay, St. Louis. Looking at you.
Belarus is back in. Russia still suspended. This is mostly based on doping. And Kirsty Coventry mentioned a couple of times in this press conference about being an athlete in 2016 and seeing with her own eyes what was going on. So that was really interesting to have her be affected in a way by what was going on with the doping situation. So I think Russia, it's going to be a little while before they come back, even though Belarus is back in the fold. And I think there are some federations that are letting Russia in more and more, but we'll see what happens at the Olympic level. And every once in a while we mention Mark Adams, who is the IOC press head, who is kind of like the MC for these press conferences. And he ended this with, we're going to get back into our discomfort zone now. Because Kirsty...
this has got to be really uncomfortable when you've got a new president who is really, as we said, rattling cages. Yes. And you want to figure out how you're going to work with her and how this is all going to manage. And she's just gung-ho, full steam ahead, not worrying about where she's going, in the sense of if she steps on some toes, oh, well, we're going to get this done.
Right. And it's going to be big change, because I think the change between Jacques Rogue and Thomas Bach was not so different. And yes. Thomas Bach did a lot of platform work with his Agenda 2020s in sort of a reactionary way, because cities weren't bidding anymore. It was too expensive to bid. So that was a reaction to that. Kirsty Coventry's coming in and just like, everybody's got to justify their existence kind of thing. And everybody seems to be getting pushed into their discomfort zone. And she's like, hey, as an elite athlete, you've got to be uncomfortable to go farther. So that is what we're going to see from the IOC going forward.
Welcome to Shukflastan.
It is the time of the show where we check in with our team, Keep the Flame Alive. These are past guests and listeners of the show who make up our citizenship of our very own country, Shukflastan. A lot of fencing news. Lot of fencing news.
So Miles Chomley Watson was at the Met Gala wearing a fencing mask that was painted. It was pretty fantastic. Fencer Kate Holmes has earned her doctorate degree, so it's now Dr. Cat. And Lee Kiefer is pregnant, which is really exciting. And then fencers Maya Chamberlain and Alexander Macialis will take part in an event at the Museum of Chinese in America in New York City called On the Strip, Chinese Americans in Fencing, on Wednesday, May 27th from 6:30 to 8:30.
Former loser Maura Grogan created an art quilt that has been juried into the Arizona Biennial and will be on display at the Tucson Museum of Art from May 22 through September 27, 2026.
Former figure skater Gracie Gold received the 2026 Lifesavers Gala Public Service Lifesaver Award from the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention.
And congratulations to George Herthler for winning 4 Southeast Emmy Awards for his film, The Games in Black and White, about Atlanta and the 1996 Olympics. The movie will have a special screening and filmmaker Q&A to celebrate the 30th anniversary of those games. That will take place at Terra Atlanta on July 18th at 1:30 p.m. Tickets are on sale now at terraatlanta.com, and we'll have a link in the show notes.
And congratulations to Book Club Claire on her recent engagement.
Yay, Claire.
Pretty fabulous ring that is.
Before we wrap things up, we have a little programming note. It's been a year, so we need a break. Milano Cortina was very stressful on a 2-person operation. You had a lot of travel immediately after. That was very stressful.
You had a lot of travel. That was stressful immediately after.
So we are taking a break, but we will have new episodes while we're gone. They just won't have current news with them. So Jenny Sichel will be back. We've got some history stuff. Also, another installment of People Who Throw Things with multi-Olympian javelin thrower Kara Winger, which is really exciting. So please do tune into those. And don't forget that we are in Facebook still. We'll still be hanging out there, and you can hang out with other Olympic and Paralympic fans there. And we will be back after July 4th. So thank you so much for listening.
And until next time, keep the flame alive.